Happy Friday, everybody. Today is January 31st. I'm Kathy. Welcome to Yarn with Heart. For some people, January is slow. For me, this month has flown by, and I can hardly believe that the next video, this coming Monday, will be February already. Thank you so much to everyone who is returning, and to anyone who is new, warm welcome. It is such a highlight of my week to get together with you all. This week will be a catch up on a couple of the make-alongs that I have been participating in during January. And for works in progress, I will be sharing about a cardigan sweater that I have been slowly knitting a bit at a time for a couple of months now. Of course, at the end of the video, there will be another challenge for all of us as I talk a bit about the next chapter in the Little Spark book. For some of you who are new, each week on Friday I share some of my works in progress and finished items. And when I show you my projects, information about how to find those items is in the description box below. Many of the items that I make are donated locally, and occasionally I make things that will be gifted to family and friends. Sometimes I make something for myself, like for example the cape that I'm wearing today. This one is the Whimsical Cake Shawl by Sara, Sach. I made this in cotton. It was originally in my gift cupboard. However, I like it so well that I decided that it would be for me. And I might make a second one with this pattern in a bright color and acrylic. So just a quick mention of this cape. So yeah. Thank you so very much, everyone, for your understanding and for the well wishes and prayers. I really appreciate that so much, and I'm happy to say that I have had much more energy this week. If you are a person who loves yarn, loves to knit, loves crochet, or any of those three, I'm so happy that you're here. Let's all grab our cup and settle in for a bit of a visit. Thank you so much to the person who asked a question of me last week. Today's question is, what style do I knit in? American English style, also called throwing, or Continental style, also called picking? The short answer to this question would be that I knit in both styles. The longer answer is that I originally knit a few first stitches when I was in elementary school. I was taught English style by a babysitter, and we didn't have knitting needles at the time, so she taught me using 2 pencils. And I did a little bit of knitting, not at all in an ergonomic way. I held my left one steady in the crook of my hip and tried my best to maneuver everything else. It didn't take long for me to give up. Now, many years later, in 2012, I picked up yarn again, this time to learn crochet, and enjoyed crochet alone for many years. But later, when I joined a knitting and crochet group, some people there encouraged me to give circular knitting needles a try. Up until then, I had mainly used only the knit stitch, and of course, English style only. I painstakingly worked my way through a first shawl on circulars, and it took months. And that was how I finally learned not to depend on steadying the left needle in that crook of my hip. Now, I hardly ever use straight needles at all. It was shortly after that that I decided that I really wanted to learn continental knitting. But it took me quite a few years before I actually got around to doing it. I knew that I had better tensioning with my left hand because of all the crochet that I had been doing. Not too long ago, I finally did learn continental style, and I thought there would be a time when I might someday want to know both styles. It took me a couple of months to feel confident in that new style of knitting, and I am so happy that I learned. And since then, I did set a goal to knit at least 30 minutes a day on most days. For now, I knit far more than 30 minutes most days. For me, there have been advantages to knowing both styles of knitting. This is just in my experience. My gauge is different in each style, and for me, it's sometimes easier to meet gauge with one style or the other, depending on the stitches used in the project. Once I pick a style for that specific project, I stay with that style throughout the whole project. Some techniques are easier for me since I know both. For example, stranded knitting, one of those color work techniques where I hold one color in each hand and use both techniques in the same project. I don't find double point needles as easy with continental style, so I use English style for that. And also I find brioche easier using English style. If a project requires only knits and purls, I find that for me that continental style is faster. If there are a lot of fancy maneuvers, for me it's easier with English style. It is possible that I might end up eventually with less repetitive motion injuries in the long term by alternating projects that use each style. And I also alternate crochet in there too, as each of these three use different muscles and motions. In my family history, there is a tendency towards something called Viking's disease, so I am really careful about my tendons and not wanting to overwork anything. Since Continental is very similar to crochet, it was natural and not too difficult for me to learn. I have been grateful that I did take time to learn both. So thank you so much, everyone, for taking the time to email and comment, to share ideas and ask me questions. It's fun to learn more about each other and to share and get to know each other better. I would love to hear from all of you. Do you knit? Is there a style that you like best or one that you would like to learn? So today, let's jump right into the finished items. The first finished item, that would be for my Something New Make-Along. If you'd like to join in next month's Make-Along here, you can watch the video coming on February 3rd for details. Then you choose your own project and find something in one of the inspiration colors. Make a project where you are starting something new to you. Now, I finished my project for this month. It's far from perfect. I was learning brioche. That was my something new. Eventually, I got the stitch itself, but oh boy, the decreasing, so the top of the hat isn't as pretty looking. I don't know how to go back and fix the mistakes, so it is far from perfect. For a first one, though, I'm going to say this was my jazzy first attempt. It won't be my final try at brioche. Next time, though, I might make something that doesn't require decreases, a cowl perhaps, and I will save the decreases for when I have more confidence. Now, the interesting thing that I learned about brioche, well, first I will show you my attempts at decreasing. I'm not going to hide it. Yeah, I did learn about decreasing, but it's not very pretty. And I did learn with brioche, it's somewhat reversible. So all of the pretty orange stitches, which are the inspiration color, I have on the inside. So it is a reversible hat. There we go. So for anyone new, the pattern I'm using is called the Squish hat. It is free on Ravelry. It's by Rachel Keener. And I used a 3.75 millimeter needles, yarn from my stash, some gray yarn that has no label that came from Yarn by the Pound from Cambridge Fibers Limited, and Big Twist Value yarn in the color orange. The next thing that I completed also didn't go exactly as planned. So this one also was a knit item. It's for Rosanna's book cover of the month make along. Each month we can pick one or more colors from the inspiration picture and make an item of our choice. The book this month is by Daniel Steele called Flying Angels. The yarns I'm using are Bernat Super Saver in the color navy, Ice Yarn Softly Baby in the color turquoise, which was number 42380, and the other color is from a Yarn Ends bag that I purchased from Mary Maxim. I have always loved, yet been a bit intimidated by graphic patterning in designs, and I decided to give this Yarn Inspirations pattern a try. It is called the Angled Stripes Shawl. I'm using 6 millimeter needles when making it. Not quite sure that it's to gauge. I almost could have tried a 6.5 millimeter for the turquoise and gold. That would have been too big of a needle for the navy one, though. It did not work out as planned overall. I'm not sure if the problem is because of my inexperience with knitting or if it was mistakes in the free pattern. On my first try, it was not sized correctly, and it was way too long. So I frogged it, part of it I frogged back, and also I could not finish the final section. This part over here in mine, it remains curved. According to the pattern, this should have became a straight back, but also I could not get it to become straight, and I don't know if it was because of my inexperience. There could be things unwritten that more experienced knitters automatically know to do. So I did bind off and left it as is, without working the final section of the pattern. So here it is. I will try another shawl eventually of this type. Now, neither of these finished items turned out how I imagined they might, so I'm trying to be gentle with myself and realize that they are the best that I could do given my experience level. And it's okay to recognize what did go well and also what I can do better at next time. And then move on to the next thing. I have to walk before I can run. So that's my um, that's my finished items for today. And as for works in progress, I have been working slowly on this one, picking it up now and then. It is the first time I am trying to knit a cardigan. Earlier, I've knit a pullover and I've crocheted a cardigan, but this is the first knit cardigan. The pattern is My Big Comfy Ribbed Cardi. It's a pattern by Jessica Reeves from Mama in a Stitch. It's free on her blog and available for sale on Etsy. I'm using Bernat Super Value held double-stranded in the color topaz and a 10 millimeter knitting needles. So far, I have completed 2 front panels and about 2/3 finished the back panel. Here's the ribbing, and I'll give you a close-up look at, it's called a broken rib stitch. So 2/3 finished on the back panel, which is the next section that I'm working on here. There, almost finished. There's still 2 sleeves and the pockets to go, and then it will be time to stitch it together and put on a ribbing around the neck and the front. So that's my work in progress that I'm still busy with. Oh, and of course my APC blanket. I worked on that a little bit this week. So this week has been a lot of knitting and not as much crochet, a little bit of crochet. And now for this week's challenge, the next chapter from the book called The Little Spark, 30 Ways to Ignite Your Creativity. This chapter's title is called Time, and I'm going to mention a quote from her book. It's from on page 25. Carrie says, "If I am struggling at anything, I generally feel like I need to find a better way. If doors are opening by themselves, then I know I'm on the right track." I thought about this and know when it comes to creativity, there is a difference between time in the flow and the creative excitement of learning versus time in struggle. Carrie's words are something that I will be more aware of. It's very helpful as I tend to get stubborn and stay with something when it is beyond a challenge, when it becomes a struggle. And maybe the struggle is sometimes a signal for me to try a slightly different way. That's all very interesting for many of us to consider. Thank you, everyone, so much for your comments and your thumbs, for your friendships here and all that we share. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy your crochet. Enjoy your knitting. And I hope to see you next Friday.